YouTube. YouTube. What is the goddamn deal, YouTube? It is, of course, your boy Volandis here with another video. And today we are talking about how to take cinematic portraits or cinematic photos or just in general. You can apply these tips to just cinematic photos in general. But today we're talking about cinematic portraits. And I got my notes here so I don't ramble or forget anything. So not too long ago, one of my homies, they was looking at some of my photos and they were just like, bro, you know what's like super dope about your photos? I would love to know. And they were like, your photos look like cinematic, like they look like portraits taken from movie clips. And that was super dope to me because I really love movies, and to have like portraits make people feel like how a movie can make someone feel was really dope to me. Anyway, after that I did some browsing on YouTube and I seen that a lot of people have videos on how to shoot cinematic portraits and cinematic portraits in general, and I never knew that was a thing up until like recently, a couple months ago. And I just wanted to give my take on how I go about shooting cinematic portraits. Granted, some of these portraits that I take or have taken are just in the moment and I'm not really thinking about shooting cinematic or making my photos look cinematic at the time, but they do come out cinematic. I'm just gonna teach y'all or just give y'all some tips on what y'all could do for capturing cinematic photos. So tip number one, you wanna have the right location. I think a location plays a big part into like the overall feel of the photo as cinematic. When I'm thinking cinematic, I'm thinking of in the field or just location, on location photography or just somewhere. So you can take a portrait that feels cinematic on like a plane, just regular background of a color or something. But I feel like when you place your subject somewhere out in the field, it makes it feel, or it's gonna give it that feel of being cinematic. But you don't have to have a super dope or a super crazy location. Your location could be a living room or even a backyard. It doesn't have to be super crazy for it to feel like it's cinematic. I just think something that's just plain is too monotonous and just not going to be enough to give off the feel of something being cinematic. But it could, but it's probably gonna be a lot harder. So I think the location plays a big part in taking cinematic photos, especially cinematic portraits. So tip number two when taking cinematic portraits is movement. You wanna have your subject moving or interacting with the location or just something, because when I'm thinking cinematic, I'm thinking of like movements and I'm thinking moving parts and just moving things. So when you can take a photo of your subject just interacting with themselves or the environment, it's gonna give it that feel that it was taken from a movie or something happened in a movie and you just took the photo. Even if it's just like them playing with their hair, reaching in their pocket, looking over, like just anything. It doesn't have to be these crazy movements, but I think it should show that something was happening and you took the photo. Or just like anything, you can have someone just like pull down on like their hoodie strings, look back. If you're walking, have them walk across frame. Just anything to add a little bit of movement within the photos is gonna make it feel a lot more cinematic, other than just someone standing there, standing still and looking into the camera, which could also feel cinematic depending on how you shoot it and everything else. But like I said, just capturing movements is going to be the best way and easier way to make something feel cinematic within a photo. So if you have like someone on set with you, or if you're having someone with you while you're taking these photos, you can have them look over at somebody and talk to them, or even like make jokes with them so they're laughing or anything. Or if you're shooting two people, you can have them interact with each other, like maybe a couple, you can have them interact with each other, maybe put their backs to each other, look into each other's eyes, just anything really, just some type of way to convey some movement and emotion within your photos. Yeah, so movement, you want to have some movement in your photos, and those two tips alone, you're already on your way to having some cinematic photos. And that brings me to my next point, which is emotion. All right, so tip number three is going to be capturing the right feel or emotions for your photos. So you want to portray something, and you want your audience that's looking at the photos to feel something when they're looking at your photos, whether it's anger, happiness, just something, sad, just anything. You want to portray the right emotions. So when you're capturing this emotion, you need to be able to directly identify what you're trying to do or what you're trying to say through these photos. And granted, people are going to take whatever they want to take from your photos, but as long as you see and you're capturing what you think, god damn it, as long as you see and you're capturing what you feel is necessary and the right overall mood for your photo, then it's all good. It's kind of gonna throw people off if you're shooting in a field of dandelions and your model or whoever you're taking pictures of is like sad or has like a mad type of vibe to it, when some flowers are kind of just like happy and people are laughing and smiling and running and frolicking. And if you convey just someone upset, which you also can do, that's gonna give it like just a different vibe. But I'm speaking on for the people who like straightforward, just straight up things. I'm someone who doesn't care about all the extra, you have to do this because you did that type of things. I'm just more speaking so for the people who are going to critically critique your work if you don't, you know, do it the way you're supposed to do it. And also, these are just tips that could help. You don't have to follow them directly to the point. That's why I'm not calling them like rules or anything, because I don't believe in rules, but just some tips. So, but yeah, so capturing the right mood and overall feel of the photo is going to give it it's gonna draw more people in and make the photo feel, like I said, more cinematic and like it was taken from a cinematic sequence. Another tip to taking cinematic portraits is to shoot at a low aperture. So when you shoot at like an aperture from maybe 1.4 to 2.8, it's gonna give you a super blurry background, especially if you're like shooting kind of a closer up type of photo. It's gonna give you a blurry background, and that's gonna give it a feel of being more cinematic as well. I know that you don't need to have a blurry background to take a cinematic photo. You can shoot photos at f4, f8, or whatever you want to, and it still can feel cinematic. But I know that for a lot of the movies that I've watched and a lot of like TV shows or just like cinematic things on YouTube, if it was a person and the background was blurry and they shot it at a low aperture, I just feel like it gives it that more like your subject stands out. These movements, they're just making the photo feel super, or I mean they're making the movie just feels super cinematic, or whatever I'm watching, it makes it feel like super, just like I'm into it, you know what I'm saying? So just a low aperture can make the photo feel that much more cinematic. And all these tips that I'm giving you guys, they're just like my opinion and how I go about shooting some of my photos and the things that I've done and learned and the things that I think you should do to make your photo cinematic. They might not be right to some people, but for me, this is how it works for me. So, okay, so the last tip that I'm gonna give you guys is super important. It might be the most important tip that I'm gonna give you guys within all these tips, and it is the editing. How you edit a photo gives it the overall mood, it sets the tone. You can do all these other steps right, and then when you get down to the editing, ruin it because you do an edit on the photo that doesn't really make sense, and it's just gonna make the photo seem like it's all over the place. Now, if you're taking photos of someone and it's supposed to be happy, they're smiling, and it's just like a feel-good photo, and you throw like a dark, gloomy, just moody edit over it, a lot of people are gonna look at that and they're gonna be confused, and they're not gonna understand what's going on, and it could throw off the whole vibe of just a photo feeling cinematic. So when you're taking these photos, you need to have like an edit in mind, or just like have a theme, or just something that you have in mind, so you can go back, so you can shoot the photos and then go back and edit them the way you saw them. So like, because when you edit certain photos, that could give it an overall feel for the photo. So like if you throw a vintage edit on a photo, you can like make someone feel like nostalgia, or you know, super bright and like warm, kind of gives it like a like an airy and happy feel, and then you know, dark and cold photos make it feel like it's like wintertime and it's dark, and you know, just a moody overall Gotham City type of photo. So how you edit your photo is really, really important to how someone's going to view that photo and how they're going to take away what you were trying to show them in the photo. So editing the photo is super, super important, if not the most important step to all these steps within taking cinematic portraits. So just make sure you throw an edit on there, or when you go out and shoot, you already kind of have like a vision in mind and how you want to edit something. Because when I go out and shoot, even when I'm just shooting on the fly and on the go and things are happening not as planned, when I'm taking those photos, I still stop and think for a quick second, even if I don't physically stop. Like in my head, I'm thinking of how I'm already going to edit these photos. So yeah, so just keep that in mind when you're taking your photos, and everything should work out. If you follow these steps, then everything should work out for you. So that's how I go about shooting cinematic portraits, especially like when I'm thinking about it. Like I try to take all those things into consideration. Hopefully this video helped you. Hopefully you enjoyed the video and you got something out of it. If you did, I would love if you would subscribe. If you haven't already, if you are subscribed, ring the bell so you get notified every time I drop a video, and leave the video a thumbs up because it is truly, oh shit, it is truly appreciated. And yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed the video, man. That is all for today. I will see you guys in the next one. I also think I'm coming down with a cold, so I'm about to take one of these emergency vitamin packs and try to fight that shit out because we got videos to do. I am also this Sunday going to Florida, so if anybody lives in Jacksonville, hit me up because I'll be out there with nothing to do, not going for work or anything, just going with some family. Just hit me up. If you live in Jacksonville and you're watching this, hit me up. Deuces, man.